We haven't really spoken about it, I don't think, because last week we didn't. The whole business of the banking business, closing people's accounts because they didn't like the look of their politics or they didn't like their friendships.
Shall I tell you what's fascinating about it to me? I wonder, in 2 or 3 years' time, whether the banks will have stopped doing this, or whether after a period of how should we say, fake contrition, they start doing it again in a big way. Has this actually, it's been exposed, but I don't see any sign in the behaviour of the banks of any real contrition, any real feeling that what they've done is wrong. And here is a general development in our society where the holding of certain opinions and the expressing of certain opinions will get you into trouble with almost any official or important body. And that's going to, it seems to me, intensify, whether it's a government department, your local authority, your children's school. If they can find anything in your life which they consider to be non-inclusive, then they will increasingly feel able to exclude you from getting services and reasonable treatment which ought to be available to every free person. And that, I think, the really interesting thing about this is come back in 3 years and tell me, has this got better? Or has it, in fact, continued and got worse? I reckon it'll get worse.
The genie's out of the bottle now, because today in the Telegraph you've got another story about Richard Tice's problems with Metro Bank, Yorkshire Building Society, American Express as well. Lloyds Banking Group have apparently admitted that they may collect information from published media and social networks.
Well, they have to be careful. If they denied that, then who knows what lies around. I was quite surprised. I suppose it's because of the government takeover of the banks that allowed Nigel Farage to do a subject access request, because I'm not sure.
I didn't know there was such a thing.
Well, there is. You can do it with the BBC, and good luck with that. But it's and various other things. And when I was doing my inquiries into with Silky Carlo and Big Brother Watch about this weird surveillance during the COVID panic, I did some subject access requests. You can, but generally they work on those same bodies which freedom of information applies to. So I suppose it must be because the government took over banks during the 2008 crisis that it must be possible. It never crossed my mind you could do it with Coots.
Well, the first time I saw anything like this was once about probably 3 years ago or so, when I applied for a visa to go to America as a visitor's visa, and it asked for the first time what your social media accounts were.
Did it?
Yeah. And it wasn't compulsory to put them down, but I believe now it is.
I'm sure it is, yeah.
You know, so you're thinking about, you know, because I was at the time, obviously, I think Donald Trump was the president. There was quite a lot of, you know, toing and froing about the American politics. And I thought to myself, I'm not going to give them my Twitter account. So I gave him a Facebook account.
Right.
Because I thought that was relatively safe.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think more and more organisations are certainly looking at people's
it'll be banking,
social media output.
Banking, travel, higher education, employment, all kinds of things you'll find. You put in an application, and it'll pop up saying, actually, so say, for instance, I wanted to do a second degree later in life.
Right.
Would I be surprised if the university I applied to came back to me and said, well, we're terribly sorry, Mr. Hitchens, we're looking into your record. We don't think
we've read some of your articles.
An acceptable student.
Right.
That's
I don't think you would be surprised.
Hasn't happened yet.
No.
But I think it's the kind of thing which will be happening in an increasingly narrowing society where you can only hold certain views. Like a lot of the views that people are getting given a hard time for at the moment are ones which a lot of people might disapprove of. That's up to them. I don't care about that. It doesn't. Once you allow anybody to be discriminated against on this basis, then everybody is vulnerable to it.
Well, and also interestingly, in this story, a lot of the banking organisations are saying we don't normally investigate anybody's kind of, you know, social media output unless we have a complaint.
Yes, so what's normally?
But of course, anybody can complain.
Anybody can complain. People do, of course, complain about me.
Yes, and there are now bodies which will complain about you if they don't like your politics, and that's all they do, and they're very good at it.
Yeah, they are good at it. I just feel this incessant narrowing and darkening of life, so that what we grew up with to take utterly for granted, as if it was the air we breathed and the water we drank, the straightforward bases of freedom of speech are actually disappearing very fast.
But I think also, going back to the university generation, the people who are currently at university probably think it's a good thing. I mean, certainly the reactions of what happened to Nigel Farage from those on the left, many of whom would be quite young, actually thought there was nothing wrong with it.
That's true. And when I was at university, I was myself on the far left and was involved in some attempts to stop people from speaking, to my lasting shame. But the interesting thing was that then, in the early 70s, quite a lot of other students, and particularly also members of the faculty, the professors and lecturers, they turned up and opposed what we on the left were doing. Said, no, these people must be allowed to speak. There was a strong and
defense of it.
Very powerful defense of freedom of speech, which taught us an important lessons, and also was entirely proper in a university setting. Now I don't think you get that.
No, because I think they're taught from a young age at secondary school that there is no such thing as giving people a platform to say something that you don't like.
Doesn't seem to be understood, does it?
No.
It just doesn't. People, you meet people and you think that no one's ever said to them that you should defend the freedom of your opponents to speak. It's never been, whereas it was dinned into us at school. And when I became a hard leftist, I understood that I was abandoning a position which most people held.
Yes.
Whereas now people become hard leftists by default because it's what they're taught. They don't even know they are becoming hard leftists.
Well, exactly.
Go through school.
Well, as you described Tony Blair and Sir Keir Starmer at the weekend, you know, they are a lot more left-wing than people think.
It's amazing how left-wing they are, and yet it's just never remarked upon.
No, because Tony Blair's seen as practically Tory by some of the Corbynistas, and they go, well, he can't possibly be left-wing because he's not as left-wing as we are.
They don't. Well, he's left-wing in a different way.
But he actually,
the Corbynistas are steam-powered left-wingers, almost like those
Luddites.
Revived branch lines where people wear those old caps and smoke pipes and shovel coal into it. But the Starmer and Blair are modern nuclear age leftists, and it's a much smoother thing,
much more dangerous,
and much more dangerous because it doesn't look anything.
Absolutely right.